Shana Tova, if we missed you at 6 o'clock, and if we missed you at 6 o'clock, I just want to repeat a bit of what I said at the outset. Personally, I am thrilled that the Erev Rosh Hashanah congregation is gathering here in the sanctuary tonight. Because of the size of the congregation, however, the fact that we're Sunday night early in September, it is unlikely that we'll be able to fit in one venue for a very long time. And for those conspiracy theorists among you, I doubt there are any, but let me reassure you that this is not the beginning of any change in our fixed seating in the sanctuary, open seating and other venue model that has been so successful. No contemplation of that whatsoever, just an opportunity to pray together this Erev Rosh Hashanah together, and I hope you liked it. I liked it, but you still can, you can give us your reaction later. I'm sure you will anyway. There are two things on your seats I do want to call your attention to. You know those bags, and we do very well bringing food back on Yom Kippur. I have to tell you that last year we were off about 2,000 pounds from the year before. That may mean because you forgot to bring your bag back on Yom Kippur. I mean, you know, people do forget. So please try to remember, we have so many people who rely on us. And by the way, you will be hearing that we'll be even doing more in this area as we will partner with the West Side Campaign Against Hunger. That will be our Mitzvah Day theme. You'll hear more about that. It is a vital mitzvah that you do this. Also, you will see our wonderful Shalom Sprouts booklet for young children and their grown-ups. We are dramatically increasing our program for young families and their grown-ups, and what will be a magnificent fifth floor you'll have a chance to see as part of our rebuilding campaign. So we're very excited about that. Look through these offerings. I do want to remind you about tomorrow morning. I think almost all of you understand why we begin our adult services at 11. Because at 9 o'clock here in the sanctuary, an even larger congregation than sits here tonight will fill these pews with the next generation, our family service, and it is wild in the Schaffler Forum with our young family services filled with our Shalom Sprouts constituency. They will be there, but I have an idea for you. If you are an early riser and you want to have something magnificent to do, Rabbi Carol is teaching an adult study opportunity in the Schnurmacher Chapel at 9 o'clock. Shirenu also has its wonderful service tomorrow at 11. And I will promise you this. When our service concludes tonight, I'm going to ask all of the clergy to stay on the bima, so that those of you who are going out those exits or can go, and if you want to go straight home, you may, because a great sage once taught me, never stand between your congregation and Erev Rosh Hashanah dinner. So we're not going to clog up, even though we want to greet each other. We're desperate to do that. You may be more desperate to have dinner, so we're going to allow you easy egress, and we will have multiple opportunities to greet each other for the new year. In 1896, Agnes Lewis and Margaret Gibson, identical twin daughters of a Scottish widower, returned to Cambridge, England from a trip to the Middle East bearing pages of several ancient Hebrew manuscripts they had purchased from a Cairo bookseller. They showed these parchment leaves to Cambridge University professor Solomon Schechter, who was startled to discover among them an original copy of the 2nd century BCE Book of Wisdom from a famed scholar named Ben Sira. Schechter set off immediately to Old Cairo, making his way to the Ben Ezra Synagogue, located according to legend, where baby Moses had been found in the reeds. In a sealed dark room, he found the Geniza, a hidden space where he uncovered 1,700 Hebrew and Arabic manuscripts. Other than the Dead Sea Scrolls, the documents in the Geniza are some of the oldest records of Jewish life in existence. The two oldest Haggadot in the world were found there. These documents paint an illuminating picture of Jewish life throughout the ages, showing that though there were times Jews were isolated in their own world or exiled simply because they were Jews, many times we lived a far more integrated life than most of us would imagine. Jewish merchants partnered with Christians and Muslims, running perfume shops and weaveries. There is ample evidence of close relationships with interfaith neighbors, letters seeking rabbinical advice about husbands who kept apartments for their Muslim concubines. These materials conveyed the truth that more often than not, Jews were full contributing participants in the world we inhabited, proud Jews and proud members of the society who were blessed to have us. These texts put to lie the fears that if led into the majority culture, we would assimilate and disappear. That was precisely Moses' obsession many years earlier. Knowing he wouldn't be permitted to enter the promised land, he was deathly afraid that his people would take on their neighbors' crude and immoral actions, like the Canaanites' regular use of child sacrifice to appease the gods. Moses was afraid that we came in contact with them, we would act like and ultimately become Canaanites. In large measure, though, that did not happen. In fact, when permitted to do so, Judaism became an attraction to countless outsiders. As time went on, the population of world Jewry swelled to 2.5 million by the year 70 BCE, partly due to a great number of converts before that was forbidden. Famed historian Salo Baron estimates the Jewish population of the world during the Roman period at 8 million, fully 10% of the Roman Empire. In impressive numbers, people were drawn to a religion in which God not only took an active role in the affairs of the world, but had concrete expectations for its adherents. Not just worship and adore me, not just obsess over the salvation of your soul, but rather grasp the realization that every person you would come in contact with, Jew and non-Jew alike, is to be treated as a holy vessel, to be fed, clothed, housed, and freed from the obstacles that keep them from achieving their full human potential. From Sinai on, Judaism proclaimed to the world the most radical of all assertions. While we need God to survive in an often savage world, God needs us too, to accomplish together justice, dignity, happiness, together that neither God nor we could accomplish alone. That is the message this rabbi on this bima teaches almost obsessively. Do you know why I, Cantor Garfine, and all the clergy who participated in tonight's service on the bima love officiating at B'nai Mitzvah? Why I call it the greatest ritual ever devised by any faith? We take an impressionable 13-year-old who often lacks self-confidence, who often spends way too much time buried in their phone, whose goal when they wake up in the morning might be to beat the level on their video game. We elevate that child on the bima and say to them, do you realize how important you are? God needs you. We need you to perpetuate the miracle of Jewish survival, but even more important, we need you to make a difference in the life of another human being. And at that age, kids are already beginning to realize that they have a lot to give. Into the chaos that we sometimes have to deal with on a daily basis, God sends out an urgent cry, according to Unatana Tokef, Uva shofar gadol yitaka, and the great shofar is sounded. And what permeates down, what penetrates down to our level? The kol demamadaka, the still, small, persistent, insistent voice within. God calls to your child as God calls to you. I need you. I need you to become aware, to see human pain and know there is something you can do about it. Many of our children already do spectacular mitzvot, make a huge difference in the health and well-being of other people at the age of 13. These B'nai Mitzvah fill me with optimism not only about the Jewish future, but our collective future. For so many years, the Jewish world has been filled with sociologists and pollsters who shake their heads, who wring their hands, and cry out not just oy vey, but oy gewalt, because of the uncertain prospects of the Jewish people in the years ahead. Reminds me a bit of the story of a man who heard about a talking dog somewhere in the Midwest. He pulls up to this farmhouse. He says, "Do you have a talking dog?" "I sure do." "You'll find him out back." He goes to the back, sees a nondescript looking mutt. He says, "Are you the famous talking dog?" "Yes, I am. Not only that, I am a certified hero. I went to Iraq as a bomb sniffer. I saved hundreds of lives." You're kidding. You're not only a talking dog, but a national hero? You deserve worldwide recognition. Excitedly, he runs back to the owner, feeling a genuine excitement to publicize to the world this canine treasure. "You want him?" the owner exclaims with a yawn. "I'll sell him to you for $20. "You'll sell this genuine hero to me for $20? Why would you do that, and why so cheap?" "I'll sell him to you for $20 because that mutt is a total liar." These hand-wringers are not liars exactly, but they do not appreciate all we have contributed to the societies we have helped to shape. They don't appreciate our strength, our perseverance, and how we have overcome so many difficult chapters in our history. The late scholar Simon Rabinowitz, in his essay, Israel, the Ever-Dying People, published in 1974, chronicles the way in which each generation of Jews fretted that theirs would be the last. No way, we thought, could we survive the destruction of the temple, the Babylonian exile, the Roman onslaught, the plunder of our people, the end of the golden age of Spain, 905 expulsions, and of course, the exterminations that many in our own families experienced in our own lifetimes. But the ever-dying people still lives. Am Yisrael Chai. We have fewer arms and legs than we might have if virulent anti-Semitism hadn't ravaged our numbers. But our heart beats strongly, our covenant with God is intact, and so is our resolve that our precious years on earth are not exercises in obsession with self, but opportunities to manifest compassion with which we have been blessed. We are the descendants of young Moses, who goes out to his people as the son of the Pharaoh of Egypt, He sees the suffering of these people. And the Torah says, Vayifen ko v'cho, and he turns from side to side. Vayarki ein ish, he saw there was no one there to do anything about this colossal injustice. And so he struck and did what he had to do. He knew, and so do we, that there is always something you can do. You know, and I know, that this remarkable period in American history will be studied obsessively by historians. Not only how did it happen, but how did the citizenry respond to the chaos and the cruelty manifest in many places. Historians will want to know, how is it possible that in a country where virtually 100% of its citizens are immigrants or children of immigrants, how could those same people harden their hearts and slam their doors in the face of desperate people begging for a modicum of humanity, wanting to walk the very path their families had trod when they all came to look for America? Historians will want to know, when they separated babies from their mothers at the border, mothers whose only crime was witnessing members of their own family shot through the head by a drug cartel, and not wanting the same thing for their little babies, they will want to know, how did we respond? What did you do? Who showed courage? Who showed indifference? Who went about their daily lives oblivious to wrenching pain around them? And they will ask, how did you respond to the bigotry of dangerous populism that was threatening to undermine sacred American values? What did we at Rosh do? We rushed to the aid of a woman who had found sanctuary in the Fourth Universal Society Church, Central Park West and 76th Street. Two of her brothers had been slaughtered in Guatemala. She was resolved to get her family out by any means possible. Somehow she made it to the border, and as her price of entry, she was raped by a member of the United States Border Patrol, the United States Border Patrol. She came to live with her sister in Westchester, and driving down the street on her way to church, one way only on Sunday, she was arrested and later served an order of deportation. The church took her in, proclaiming to the world that in no way will we, children of God, sentence this mother and her family to certain death back in Guatemala. How did we at Rosh respond? By being one of the few synagogues to apply to HIAS, to resettle refugees, not caring what is their religion or nationality, or skin color, or sexual identification, or gender identification. Wanting to provide not just compassion, but concrete help, apartments, jobs, for people whose lives have been full of danger, isolation, and misery. People who sought from a religious community like ours the conviction that they are human beings deserving of our embrace. This is who we are, proud members of Congregation Road of Shalom, proud Reform Jews. You know, some people make fun of the early pillars of our movement. The foundational statement of American Reform Judaism is the Pittsburgh Platform, written in 1885. The document is sometimes panned because it announces we are no longer a nation, and in 1885 we did not anticipate a return to Palestine. panned because it did not automatically embrace the ritual side of Torah law, but urged us to maintain only such ceremonies as elevate and sanctify our lives. What people miss about the Pittsburgh platform is its soaring directive that as full members not only of the Jewish people but the American people, we have responsibility for the welfare of others. The Cairo Geniza reminds us that we always felt this responsibility when society allowed us to contribute. Then as now, it was our job to realize the messianic hope for the establishment of a kingdom of truth, justice, and peace for all people. The Pittsburgh platform, all of Reformed Judaism, cries out to us. You and I were put on this earth for a reason. We have a mission, not to wring our hands, but to move our feet to repair a world so riven with conflict and division. Our mission in this very political year is to make sure that everyone who is eligible actually has a right to vote. That people who are not convicted of crime should not have to languish in prison for years simply because they cannot make bail. That frightened pregnant women should not lose the right to make basic decisions about their lives simply because they are too poor or live in the wrong state. And it is our responsibility to make sure that every child who lives in New York City is also able to go to the same schools of quality that we insist for our own children. It is our responsibility to know when our children are victims of bullies, and in fact, when they are the bully. I was profoundly moved by a recent cover in the New York Post. By the way, I read the Post religiously from right to left, making sure I cover the sports first. But I could not escape the cover of a beautiful she was a Jewish girl, who had committed suicide after having been consistently and persistently cyberbullied by kids who said to her, "You have no friends," and even, "Why don't you commit suicide already?" Can you possibly even fathom that? We can't always prevent tragedy, but we need to know in what conversations our children are participating. We need to try to know how they've been influenced by their peers. We need to be pains in the neck to take responsibility, to make them responsible, to make them more sensitive human beings and compassionate Jews. I was not there, but the story is told that 70 years ago in 1948, the legendary Jackie Robinson was called up to the Brooklyn Dodgers. And one day the Dodgers were playing the Reds in Cincinnati. The fans who filled the stadium were raining down vile taunts and curses to the first African American in Major League Baseball. Jackie Robinson stood tall at first base, isolated, protected from neither fan nor teammate. Then, according to the story, something extraordinary happened. The Dodger shortstop Pee Wee Reese, who had grown up in the nearby southern city of Louisville, walked across the diamond, placed his arm around the shoulder of his teammate. Hush descended over the crowd. They were mesmerized at the sight of two baseball players standing next to each other, a white arm draped over a black one. 1948. That one act of human decency buoyed the hopes of many black Americans that someday they would find common cause with whites to help fulfill the promise of this great land of the free. Well, someone waits for you to put your arm around them. Maybe it's a long estranged family member. Maybe it's a child who has long yearned for your embrace. Maybe it's an immigrant who searches eyes around them for some hint of humanity. Maybe it's a child in your kid's classroom who goes to bed hungry on the Upper West Side. This is a new year, a chance to recalibrate. This is not a time for passivity. There is no excuse for indifference. Reformed scholar Leonard Fine said in a memorable talk, right here at Rosh in 1992. Judaism is a living commitment, or it's a vestigial curiosity. The genius of the Jew was the proposition that the world is not working the way it was meant to, that we live in a fractured world and we are implicated in its repair. Judaism is not a shawl that we put on and take off as occasion seems to warrant. Judaism is a way of life. So it's not the services we attend, but the services we perform that truly defines us. So as Jews, we have a mission. As a human being, you have a mandate. Someone stands isolated and alone, waiting. You simply have to walk across the field, put your arm around them and say, Hineni, I am here. You are alone no more. May it be God's will, but first, may it be our own.